Like Nick said in Missoula, we are seeing some problems with wind and blowing snow, just like what's going on right now on Hodgson Road in Columbia Falls. This is the neighborhood where that officer-involved shooting happened, and if you take a look behind me, there is still police activity hours after the fact. Haven't registered to vote yet? Still need a ballot? This is where you need to be, the elections office on Russell and Wyoming, but you do have a limited amount of time. Neighbors started calling the sheriff's office around 3:30 p.m. and this crime scene tape went up not long after. But you can still see signs of that fire. Just take a look at some of the smoke damage above those windows. There's also debris on the ground, and you can also find pieces of charred, shattered glass as well. Floodwater still rushing through the streets here. This is Tower Street right here. Over there's Kerwall Drive. That's right. That is not a river. That's a road. The Clark Fork River is actually out of sight over that way. I can count at least 5 bars and restaurants from where I'm standing right now, and by this time tomorrow, they'll all be closed under an order issued by the Missoula City County Health Department this afternoon. The National Weather Service office here in Kalispell measured only an 11 combined inches of snowfall in November and December. That's a whole lot less than the more than 40 inches that they recorded in November and December of 2017. But winter's just getting started. 27 kids were taken from right here, the Ranch for Kids. There are a number of signs around the property indicating that this is a school, no trespassing, and that it's monitored by security cameras. Where I'm standing right now was under 80 feet of snow not too long ago. That's about as tall as 16 of me. You're looking at about 2 hours worth of work here. We've got 2 or 3 mattresses, at least 10 tires, car parts, trash, and several needles. Cub Scouts put their letters in here. And then this box of letters is going to be dropped off for veterans. Gas meters, vents, roofs, I know that's a lot of shoveling, but there's one more thing the fire department says is important to keep clear of snow. Fire hydrants.
Tonight, a story you'll only see right here on NBC Montana.
W.R. Grace has a controversial history here. After closing a Libby mine, health officials linked to hundreds of deaths. But NBC Montana's Marian Davidson found out the state is investing in it.
At the kitchen table in this home, Doug Shaw talks about what's happening to him.
And I kind of call it slow death poison fibers. Just literally eats you up.
He's one of thousands doctors say are sick from asbestos exposure in Libby. Exposure linked to the first public health emergency in America.
It's in yards, kids playing it, and kids are literally dying as a consequence.
Exposure court documents linked to one company, W.R. Grace. It's a company we found Montana owns stocks and bonds in. W.R. Grace has a long history in Libby, but here's the gist. The company operated an asbestos-contaminated mine in the town for decades until it closed in 1990. According to company estimates, it released 5,000 pounds of asbestos every day. Whether you worked in the mine or not, if you lived in Libby then, you were exposed.
And all I did is went to school. They hauled that stuff into the schoolyards. We got a low spot here where the water's a little, we'll haul this in for free. Kids are out there playing in it. We didn't know any difference.
Hall is now in his 50s. He says he's been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, gastric cancer, and asbestosis because of his exposure in Libby. In fact, like Shaw, all of their lives have been changed by asbestos. When we told them about Montana's investment in W.R. Grace, it didn't sit well.
Yeah, we're all dying because of it, but they seem to think it's okay. It's not right. There's been a lot of people dying here because of this.
As recently as June 2018, Montana held more than $3 million in W.R. Grace stocks and bonds. The state's Board of Investment says that figure is now $160,000, but there's no public information available to verify that. Either way, it's a small percentage of the around $19 billion the State Board of Investments oversees. So why is it there? We went to Helena to find out.
So our only exposure now within W.R. Grace is within the MSCI USA IMI index. That is 99% of all market capitalization is within that index.
In other words, it's a group of 2,400 stocks that represent the U.S. stock market.
So it's our way of exposing ourselves to the broadest opportunity set at the lowest cost to garner the greatest gains.
Villa says the returns are worth it for people like public employees whose pensions the board invests. It also fulfills this mandate of the board's constitution.
All of our decisions are financial.
But what does an investment in W.R. Grace mean outside these walls? We're more than 200 miles away from Helena in Libby, where W.R. Grace isn't just a name, and it isn't just an investment opportunity.
There's no amount of money. I'd much rather have the family members I lost because of this than any amount of money.
Erdahl says he watched his grandfather die of mesothelioma. Now they wonder if Montana can get rid of its investment in W.R. Grace. Villa says that's not an option.
The index is how you minimize your costs, so returns would necessarily go down. If we were to go out and buy all of the other 2,405 stocks that are contained within that index, our costs would go up substantially.
But he doesn't have exact numbers because he says investing a different way hasn't been considered.
The social investing that other states pursue is not allowed under our Constitution.
We looked at some other states. Texas, Florida, and Illinois all have companies they won't invest in. Contracting with terrorists, boycotting Israel, or being complicit in genocide in Sudan could land a company on one of those lists. In Montana, a bill proposing some restrictions died in the House last month. How does the state explain continued investment in W.R. Grace to people in Libby?
I would say that as a fiduciary, we are buying into a very broad asset class that is exposing all of Montanans to higher returns and lower costs.
For Montanans like Shaw, that's not enough.
We all paid into the system. We didn't deserve what we got. Bottom line.
For now, state money, no matter how little, continues to support W.R. Grace, a company Shaw says is killing him. In Libby, Marian Davidson, NBC Montana.
NBC Montana's Marian Davidson explains Kalispell Schools says it needs more money to balance its budget.
You might have seen the signs on lawns or in downtown shop windows. The Kalispell school system is asking taxpayers for $1.2 million.
This is operational costs. This is lights, water, textbooks, you name it.
Let's break down what that means for you. What you pay is based on your property value. A home valued at $275,000, the median in Kalispell, means $35 per year with the levy.
We ask when the need is there, and it certainly is clearly a need as we plan for next year's budget.
The district recently trimmed almost $900,000 from the high school budget. Even so, they're coming up short. $1.2 million short. Why? Voters passed the last high school levy in 2007. Since then, high school enrollment has grown by more than 300. The district also added 56,000 square feet of new space at Flathead High School and the Ag Center.
It becomes an operational expense.
Some faculty are worried what could happen if the levy doesn't pass.
No one has stated exactly what would be cut. Certainly there would be belt tightening across the board.
Higgins has seen enrollment in the college-level IB courses more than double in 10 years. But do residents know the decision will be on a ballot in their mailboxes?
I was not aware that they were asking for a levy.
Others didn't want to go on camera, but said the same thing. But Wilson says she knows what she'll do when that ballot arrives.
If they are needing funds for education, I would definitely be supportive of a levy.
Those ballots will be mailed out next week, and the $1.2 million decision will be in the hands of voters. In Kalispell, Marian Davidson, NBC Montana.
Laurel and Reed says suspect Justin Johnson is still out there, and law enforcement officials think he's in this area. If you live east of Corvallis in Hamilton Heights or Willow Creek, make sure your homes and vehicles are secure and locked.
From sundown to sunup, volunteers will be handing out these at homeless shelters, food banks, even outside. Now, this survey asks a number of questions, but probably most important, it asks, where are you sleeping tonight? This delivery brought in 30 of these masks. They're easy to assemble and reusable. This that you see behind me is a pile of 90% sand, 10% salt, and there are about 6 more piles just like it to keep the 850 miles of road clear this winter. Instead of being left in a cage, dogs like these ones get a whole lot of socialization before they head home. The government shutdown has ended, but there are still some signs of it here in Glacier National Park. Quite literally in this case. This asphalt is bare, and that's because the trailer was sitting right here, loaded with donated items.